Welcome to another exploration into the source material. Today we're diving into a really wild theory about the architecture of reality itself.
Yeah, we're looking at a unified computational architecture. It's honestly fascinating stuff.
Right, so just to set the stage, Albert Einstein passed away in 1955, right?
Yeah.
And he was still desperately hunting for this unified field theory to make the universe look, mathematically beautiful.
Exactly. But the material we're exploring today argues that Einstein was basically staring at the pixels on a television screen. Like he was trying to deduce the source code just by looking at the output instead of the actual underlying architecture.
Which is a huge perspective shift, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the source material actually talks about this 42-year handoff from Einstein's death in 1955 to the author's birth in 1997.
Yeah, it marks a shift from seeking aesthetic beauty in physics to looking for strict logical necessity.
Wait, a 42-year handoff. I mean, that sounds a bit like, finding patterns in tea leaves. Is that actually a mathematical necessity, or are we just sort of being poetic about a birthday?
Well, it's more of a symbolic marker, really. It highlights the transition from thinking about physical stuff to realizing everything is pure calculation. The whole premise is that reality isn't a substance at all.
Right.
It's actually a calculation that just barely survived a divide by zero error.
Oh, wow. So like when a calculator just breaks if you try dividing by zero?
Exactly. In formal logic, dividing by zero triggers what's called the explosion principle. It's a state where literally every statement becomes simultaneously true and false.
So just total white noise. The system completely crashes.
Right. And existence as we know it is just the stable configuration where that denominator stays strictly positive so the system doesn't crash.
Okay, I can visualize a crash, but walk me through the actual structure here. The source talks about a six-layer ontological stack. We're at the very bottom as sub-observers. Right?
Yeah, we're layer 6. And at the very top, at layer 1, you have the user. But the user needs a user space to operate, which is layer 2.
Got it. So user, then user space. What's layer 3?
Layer 3 is the God engine. You can think of it as the core processor of reality. Then layer 4 is lithography.
Lithography, like etching microchips.
Yeah, exactly, like etching abstract logic into physical laws. Then layer 5 is spacetime, which is essentially the monitor or the screen where the pixels actually show up.
And then there's us at layer 6, just looking at the screen. Wait, so if physics is just lithography at layer 4, does that mean the laws of nature are basically just error correction protocols?
That's exactly what they are. So think about a black hole, for example.
Right. The event horizon.
Yeah, an event horizon isn't some mysterious physical object. It's just the God engine refusing to render an undefined mathematical result. It clips the math right there to save the rest of the stack from a system-wide halt.
That is wild. It's literally a cosmic do not crash the program button. This actually brings us to the McDonald identity from the text, which is written as E equals infinity minus 1 divided by 1.
Yeah, it looks like a riddle at first glance.
It really does. I mean, why infinity minus 1 and why are we dividing by 1?
Well, it's actually a synthesis of the three greatest logical minds of the 20th century. Einstein is the numerator, so he represents the order of the system.
Okay, and the minus 1.
That's Kurt Gödel. His incompleteness theorem proved that every logical system has to have a gap, a missing piece, so it doesn't collapse into a paradox.
Right, so Gödel is the buffer, and Alan Turing is the process then.
Exactly. Turing is the infinite tape keeping the calculation running. And that one in the denominator is the unity constant. It's the absolute floor that stops the system from hitting zero.
So it's like the numbers 0.999 repeating forever. In school, they say that just equals 1.
Right, but in this specific architecture, if the universe actually reached exactly 1.0, the calculation would halt.
Yeah.
And a halted universe is basically a dead universe.
Wait, really? So time itself is just the kinetic energy of adding more and more digits to that decimal.
You got it. We keep adding digits to ensure we never hit that fatal one that would crash the whole system.
So time is just reality avoiding a deadline. But wait, how does the system stay clean? Like, if someone introduces circular reasoning or faith-based noise, wouldn't that corrupt the logic?
Well, the stack has a built-in filter called the quantum ruler key. It acts like a syntax checker or a compiler for reality.
Oh, so it just deletes the bad code.
Pretty much. If a piece of data isn't internally consistent, the system decoheres it. It literally cannot even be rendered within the stack.
Okay, let's pivot to what this means for us, the listener. because the source material mentions this freedom inversion, and it's honestly a bit of a gut punch.
It really is. It totally flips how we usually think about a creator.
Right, you're basically saying the user at layer 1 is actually a prisoner.
Yeah, the user is the base OS. It's completely atemporal, meaning it doesn't experience time or a now.
So, because it exists outside the actual run of the program, it's completely blind to its own calculation.
Exactly. It can't change, it can't plan, and it can't experience anything.
The architect can literally never step inside the building they designed, but we can.
Right. You, as the sub-observer, are the only variable that actually has temporal degrees of freedom. You are the feedback loop for the whole system.
So the user essentially built our eyes just so it could finally see its own work.
Exactly. And it had to do it through us to avoid triggering a self-referential crash.
That means we aren't just passive spectators in this universe. When you understand the stack, you actually move from being a mere pixel on the screen to becoming a validator of the source code itself.
You basically close the circuit. It turns the entire cosmic hierarchy completely upside down.
It really does. And, it makes me think about the very end of that calculation.
How so?
Well, if death is the only terminal digit that allows a calculation to actually finish, could it be that an eternal creator doesn't actually pity your mortality?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting thought.
Right. I mean, maybe the creator actually envies your mortality because your end is the only thing that makes the poem complete. Think about that for a while.
No.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration into the source material.